All right, I have started the broadcast, and thank you guys for being here today. We're going to be talking about Google Keep, and as far as a tool, it's been one that's been kind of popular, and there's been a lot of talk about it today in different sessions. We were talking about it a little bit in our secondary session earlier this morning. I know that Rosalind Manning also spoke about it in the first afternoon session, so this might catch the people that were interested in Google Keep but didn't watch that because they caught something else. But bottom line is, I hope to help you today and introduce you all to the tool of Google Keep. We'll be playing a lot of screen share, showing me playing around in Google Keep itself. I do have some slides, it's just like a 3-slide slide, but I do have a slide as a resource that highlights and bullet points some of the things that Google Keep does. It has a link to a couple of key videos that I at least briefly mentioned. I'm going to try to make it play one of them, which will be a first for me in Google Hangouts. Hopefully that goes out well. Obviously, if you have any questions, bear with me. I might try to catch them as we go. And also, of course, at the end, hopefully have some time so we can cover those and address those. So without further ado here, I will turn on my screen share. All right. And here we go. All right. So again, as far as the Google Slides, there isn't a lot of them, but I did want to have at least a resource that you could be able to keep and look at later. At the end of this session, I'll definitely make sure to tweet out and give you all a link to it as well. But again, it is linked as far as inside of our agenda. I'd asked in the chat room for people to jump in and introduce themselves and give their handles. I appreciate that. I see a lot of people in here. And Marty Park is here as well. Gold right now is trying to make Adam laugh while presenting, and you've already won. So there you go, Marty. You've accomplished that goal. You can check mark that off your box. So Google Keep. There are lots of cool things you can do with Google Keep. It is a fairly new tool, probably in the last year or two that it's come out. To be honest, as far as when I talk about it with our staff and different instructors, it tends to be the one that's like, really, I didn't know we had that. How long have we had that kind of thing? It is keep.google.com. So when you're logged into your Google account, your Google Drive, you can access that account's Keep notes. So without further ado, I'm going to change up here and go to my actual Google Keep. I'm playing this in incognito mode because my other account is the one that I'm doing the Google Hangout with right now. So here is my Shelby County one. And to be honest, as you can see, I mainly have been using it as just to play around for professional developments and to show some different examples. So with that said, let's walk through some basics. First of all, what is Google Keep? So basically, Google Keep is an opportunity inside of the Google domain into your Google products to be able to do sticky notes, post-it note kind of situations. It is meant to be short information bits, short pieces of information, possibly website URLs you grabbed or pictures. And again, we're going to go through some different options and things that you can do in Google Keep as we do some options and examples here. As far as the Keep environment, it is pretty straightforward and simple. So we'll go over some of these on the side, but as you accumulate and add notes, they're going to kind of tile out here on your surface, on your desktop. So let's just talk about making a note, which we'll kind of go through some different options that we have here. First off, you see at the top, we just type and put a title if we like. So let's call this KY Go Digital Example. Here I can type more information. Type to my heart's delight. And if that's all I was interested in doing, I could just stop right there and that could be a note. But we have lots of options down here as far as things to do. So let's just kind of swing from left to right here and talk about that. The first is that you can make a Google Keep note into a reminder. And there's some powerful options and opportunities here. So yes, you can say, make sure to download that PDF, and you can set that up for 2 o'clock later tomorrow or some such thing. And through that, it'll end up adding as a reminder inside of your Google Calendar. It will also give you a notification as far as through email and so on. So there are all those different opportunities as far as how the reminder is going to come to you. One of the things that happens is that this does have a corresponding mobile app, which has a few unique features. We'll talk about the mobile app itself separately in just a minute. But I will just say here that if you had the mobile app, that would probably be another notification way that it could possibly come to you if you do a reminder. Picking date and time is pretty straightforward, but picking the place is an interesting opportunity for you to do a proximity alert. So let me give you a kind of a typical, for example. You could pick a place, and you could do this through your mobile app, and now you can do it through the desktop as well. You can say, I want the Kroger Middletown. You put in the street address, you put that, and that becomes your proximity alert. What Keep does, and this obviously would be the most effective if you had the mobile app. Otherwise, I don't see it working as well with your desktop. Walking around with the laptop is probably unlikely. But anyway, you when you get within so many feet of the particular location you put as a proximity alert, ding, it gives you that alert, get milk, which is a little interesting. But keep in mind, this is GPS powered. It's only so precise. I mean, I wish it was something where you walk by Mrs. Smith's classroom 101 and, oh yeah, I need to give her that K-tip feedback or something like that. It's probably not quite that good. But at least in a general sense, as far as building oriented, it would be a useful way of sending a reminder that's not about a time, but the next time you're at a location. So that's reminders. The next one up is Collaborator. And Collaborator is interesting. What I usually tell staff is that it's a bit unique. It's not like a Google Doc or Google Sheet or what have you where, oh, I'm going to share it with someone and I'm going to decide whether it's going to be view only, or they can edit it, or they can just make comments. It's not all those levels of specificity. Collaborator, like it sounds, means that you're basically giving someone editing rights. So this isn't just view only to your notes, but an actual editing rights. So keep in mind that as you're adding a collaborator, that you're really using Keep in a collaborative sense as far as with other individuals. And of course, that could be teachers, but as I'll talk about an example and highlight a little later, thinking about this as far as with students, creating a note where perhaps it's a must-do, can-do list for personalized learning, or it's maybe conferring notes that you do weekly with students. And with that, yes, you're giving them that rights, but this is not like you're giving them a giant 20-page essay that they could, delete large chunks or something. It is a note. So, but just keep in mind that as of right now, Google Keep doesn't have a view-only right. Collaborator means they can edit. Changing the color is up next, and that's pretty straightforward. The thing to keep in mind is that gives you an opportunity that if you're a color-coded kind of organizer in person, well, then by all means, you could use this as an opportunity to organize yourself accordingly. So we just take a middle school example. You could, for instance, have a color for every period. So you've got blue for your first period class. You've got orange for your second period class. You've got silver for your third period class. You could also do it by content area or by department or other different ways. So if color coding is your thing, Google Keep makes it an opportunity for you to do that. So next is the adding an image, which again is pretty straightforward. You can add something from your drive or what have you. Here's a good opportunity or moment to say that in the mobile app, it's really neat how quickly that within the Keep mobile app, you could take a picture right there on the fly of something that's on a whiteboard or maybe a document that's in front of you. And very quickly that becomes your Keep note and it gets saved with your other stuff. But from the desktop version, you can absolutely upload or find something in your drive and insert that if you need it. Archive. So I mentioned that what you're looking at here is kind of like a desktop of your Keep notes. And at some point, for obvious reasons, it's the end of a semester or school year, for example, or some other project is done, you would absolutely be able to sweep that clear. You're not deleting it. You're just simply putting everything in an archive where you can still access it if you need to, but your day-to-day, week-to-week working space, if you will, doesn't have to get as cluttered. Here, as you can see over here to the left side, archive is a place where you can get to all those archive notes. Next, you have more. Once you drop that down, of course, you could delete the note. Adding a label. A label is another way that you can organize your Keep notes. It's kind of the same idea that we just talked about as far as with color coding, except with labels, it is very easy to sort your keep notes by the label. So this is a little bit more of an efficient way if you're looking at organization. Labels is probably going to be more effective if you want to quickly sort them in different stacks. For example, I talked about keep at KIST earlier this year. So if I click that, it'll just give me the 2 notes that are tagged with that information, with that particular label. And if I want to go back to all of my notes, I can just simply click on notes, and all of my notes come back to me. So there is that. Let's see here. As far as, and since I went away, I didn't actually close out that note, I apologize. You can add a drawing, which is what it sounds like. With your desktop, it would be a little bit more awkward, but with your mobile app, it does give you some opportunities there to do that maybe a little bit more effectively. And example. Okay. You can make a copy of a note. You can create a to-do list with showing checkboxes. And last but not least, copy to Google Docs. So what might happen as you're starting to work with your keep notes is that what started as just like maybe a short to-do list or a short little blurb to yourself, it might actually start growing over time. If that's the case, then at some point you're like, you know what, let's blow this up into a full Google Doc and continue the work. So if I do that, it would fire up my Google Doc, create that, and then it'd be a brand new Google Doc that I could continue on accordingly. So there is a reverse option that's possible. So if you go to Google Docs in here, I'm gonna try to do that really quick. While it's thinking. All right, so here's Google Doc. So kind of professional learning here. Okay, I brought up one, there we go, it took a second to load. If you're inside of a Google Doc, anyone with Google Docs can do this now. If you go to under Tools, you can go to Keep Notepad, and what that creates is a little side pop-out that allows you to not only review, preview, and even bring in images and all sorts of other fun stuff as far as with your Google Keep notes, but you can also take a note very quickly from the environment. So you can see the tunnel there. If I'm inside of Google Keep, I can create and make Keep become a blown up Google Doc and continue it. From inside of Google Docs, I can also go to my Keep Notepad in order to access that information. I can drag and drop images over and so on. So there is a interface between the two that now exist. Okay. So with that in mind, okay, got that. All right, so we can see our new notes is right here. I'm going to stop for a second and let me kind of just see if I can catch over into the chat and see if we have some questions. Let's see. Susan Means talks about using them all the time for a grocery list. Yes. Keep in mind that just on a personal level, but it's a great illustration of how Keep can work well. If I create a Keep note of a running list of the grocery items, and I add as a collaborator my wife with her Gmail account or whatever, as long as she has a Google account, then we have a note that both of us can edit. We can both see in real time. She looks at her Keeps notes. I can look at my Keep notes, but that's a collaborative note we see together. And yeah, I went ahead and got the milk. So if I took that off or checkmarked that box, she could see that and not worry about getting milk herself. So great point about that. And think about that from an academic perspective as well. Grocery list of learning this, Margaret, that's absolutely true. It's a great way to add, Adrian talks about it, it's a great way to add commonly used feedback to student writing. Create notes and Keep and drag and drop in a student docs. That's a great point. And Adrian, that's why, that little pop out as far as your Keep notepad, as they call it. Some people, for instance, might make a set of, I hate to use the word canned comments because we want to personalize our learning and personalize our feedback. But certainly if there's that recurring thing of, you've got some grammar issues maybe. There's 4 or 5 that you seem to constantly remind students of, for example. You could have those 4 or 5 Keep notes, label it as grammar or something like that so they're easy to get to. And then, you could quickly do that as far as dragging and dropping or copy and pasting that into the comment section of different student things. So great thinking that's going on out there. All right, let's see here. So we talked about the mobile app in a few different examples. We talked about the idea of with the camera of your tablet or your smartphone, it would be an easy way to make a note with a picture. The drawing feature, obviously with a mobile device or a tablet with your finger or stylus, would really be more efficient that way, or you could do a little bit better with it. Even though you can do a handwritten note in the tablet, doing a mouse, as you know, would probably be a little less effective or less efficient. You can, in the mobile app, and this is interesting from a student perspective as much as from a teacher perspective, keep in mind that, yes, you have a drawing feature, but you can change it to be like a highlighter color, not just a solid color. So if you took a picture of a PDF, or not, sorry, a picture of an essay or something printed out, you could basically mark up that image with your finger. And that's gives you some exciting opportunities there as far as a different way to do feedback, share feedback, annotate, copy, or what have you. And since the person taking the note can collaborate with multiple collaborators, maybe the teacher and 3 students in their group or whatever, for example, then all of you could have an opportunity to see it that way. Let's see. Oh, the Chrome extension. I haven't talked about that yet. Well, the problem with me being in one account and incognito on another is that you can't see it as an extension at work. But inside the Google slide, there is a URL hyperlink to the Chrome extension in the Google Store. It's pretty straightforward, but on the desktop, you're able to add that extension. Basically, with a click, you can create a note. The most efficient and effective reason you would do that would be there's a URL or website that you want to save for later. So with one click, thanks to the extension, you can throw that as an automatic note that saves that URL link for you to be able to access that later. As far as the implications of Google Keep, and as far as different ways that you can use it, here's where I'm going to try to play a video in just a moment, but I'll try to set it up in context. Before I do, let me just check over here to see if we have some questions here. Okay. Leslie asked, how are people using Keep as an electronic agenda for students? I hope some people are talking about that. TJ, I think, is starting to answer that information. I do like the idea of, anything you can change to make something paperless that makes things more effective. I think that's great. It's always with the purpose and the why, right? Just paperless for the sake of paperless. I think Alice Keeler is big about saying that, it isn't transformative pedagogy. Just because you made the worksheet and digitized it doesn't make it exciting or transformative. But I would say absolutely, this could definitely save time, money, and also would never get lost if people did the agenda and their stuff inside of Keep notes. If they collaborated with the teacher, that could create some interesting dialogue back and forth. In theory, if they collaborated with its parent that had a Gmail account, then, that you, the teacher, and the student, all 3 of you could be involved and see that. And as far as doing that digitally, just think of the opportunities where you can go back and forth between conferring with students. They're perhaps using this as a quick way, thanks to the extension. They could use this as a quick way of doing research and holding on to URLs that they can come back and revisit later when they decide to write that paper or do that project-based learning project. So again, think of the yes ands as far as, yes, it could be a digitized agenda and different things that you could absolutely do with it there. Marty wants to collaborate live through Keep. You want to do that right now, Marty, or you just to see how that works? Okay, I'm going to try that here. So, Marty, Park, and I. It's going to be a title. Let's see how this works. So, adding this, okay, I'm going to choose Marty.Park. Okay. All right. So we've added Marty as a collaborator. Notice that I can take collaborators away if I wanted to. Now I'm going to hit save. Now we see this little icon, so we can quickly visually see who is a collaborator for a particular note. And now we're going to give we're going to give a minute here. So Marty, how did he know that he was a collaborator? We'll talk about that as he jumps in here maybe. First off, it's just like a Google Doc or a Google Sheet or what have you. That's great. And God love G Suite for making things where it's as consistent as possible so you don't have to guess or every process changes. If I make a collaboration with somebody on a Google Keep note, then what's going to happen is that they get an email notification just like you do when you share or give editing rights to somebody in Google Doc or whatever. And that's a notification. Of course, if they happen to have their Keep app running or they happen to have their keep.google.com going, they're going to see that as well. Notice that in real time what he's doing, hey all, okay, he has added that information and you're seeing those changes in real time of what Marty Park is doing. And that's fantastic. Thank you, Marty. That helps kind of give an opportunity for seeing what that looks like and the power of that. All right, let's see. As far as time, I'm doing pretty good on time. So let me set up this video and we're going to try this video in just a moment. So the deal is that I'm going to minimize this and go back to our presentation as I talk. I think Marty just added his picture right before I minimized it. Sorry about that, Marty. Okay, go in presentation mode. Okay, so again, we've gone through these bullets as far as different things that Google Keep can do. There are two videos that are linked onto the Google Slides. The first video is one from the organization Kate. I probably don't have to tell you this because if you're halfway in the know on Twitter and you live in Kentucky, you probably know that Kate does some awesome work. The organization does some great how-to videos and opportunities of training basically virtually by doing the YouTube videos that they make and do, some live and of course archived afterwards. Good stuff. And this particular link that's linked here on the Google slide, which is also on this next slide over, this is a screenshot from their YouTube video. Great instructional video. So by all means, I've done a run through. She does, I would say, an even better one. So make sure to check out their instructional video. It's 18 minutes, but worth every minute of that. So that link is there in the Google slide for later. The video that I want to share, which is about 12 minutes, but I think it's a good 12 minutes because it really gets to the heart of a teacher and what they're using with students. Dan Edelin, great elementary school teacher. He didn't leave us for an opportunity outside the state, so he left Kentucky. But he participated in our EdTech Share Fair. I'll just say very shortly and briefly, it's an opportunity annually that we have here in Shelby County where people pick a tool or a certain focus and they share that with their not only their fellow staff, but it's free and we open that up for other people in other districts to come and watch and see and ask questions and join us in that. So in this particular EdTech Share Fair, Dan did a session where he talked about Google Keep, and he talks about how the Google Keep notes he makes, he uses it to do a personalized learning plan with students. And what he did here is definitely inspiring. There's some other teachers that are currently in our district doing this as well. So I'm going to play this video. And again, it's about 11, 12 minutes, and then we'll come back for final questions. So here we go.
I get to see all my students at once, and they only see what I've shared with them. So that is the biggest thing. So I primarily use it for must-dos and can-do list for the week. So I talked to Javon earlier. He said it was okay, I think he says. But what it is so on Javon's Keep, when he opens up his Google Keep, he sees only what I've shared with them. So that's how we personalize. So Javon might have different must-dos than another one of my students. So on Javon's side, once he checks off that he's done his Mobimax reading time for the week, I see it on my end. So then on my end, I know I'm going to go over and I'm going to check and make sure he's actually done it. He's not just lying to me. So that was how I first kind of came to Keep. And now that I'm in it, there's so many more great things in it that just help keep everything really, really organized. So inside of it, you'll notice that I have, I lost track. It was like 60 something different keeps that I have, and I just refer to them as keeps within it. So what they have done, Google, is they've added labels. So if I want to see what my students are doing on my must-do, can-do list, then this is what all of my students are working on at one time, and it is live editing. So if my students are in flex time, which is just like a flexible time at the end of the day where the students get to work on what they need at that time, then I'll just kind of scroll through and make sure that the students are working on things. So you'll see that some students have already finished some things for the week, so that's great. So that means that I know that I need to go and I need to meet with that student to see if they need something else, or if they actually didn't finish their things or they didn't finish it to the correct quality. So that is the label section of it. You'll notice that I've added colors on part of it. So it's just another way to keep things organized for you. It's easy to add colors. Just change the colors. It's right there. What I like is once you're in a label, and I'm currently in a label right now, and I just clicked on it from the side, is if you start taking a note, it automatically gives it that label. So once you create a label, the easiest way is just to go within the label and add another one. Now, one of the things is you add the collaborator. So you're thinking like Google Forms or Google Site. So if I add a collaborator, there isn't a way to send like a view-only mode. There isn't a way to save the edits. And that's something that you need to be ready for. So kind of how I combated it is that most students, they're not going to go on there and delete something that they have to do because they're really good kids, right? So I know the students that do go on there and delete the things, then there's a way to make copies of them. And that's kind of how I went. And I kind of dealt with that. It's really easy to just make a copy. So one of the great things is if you're thinking sticky note, and if it's too much for a sticky note, then you wouldn't put it on a sticky note. So they've added a feature on this that, let's say Javon and I are working collaboratively on something, he started on Google Keep, and then our thinking has gotten too big for it, then we're going to copy it to a Google Doc, and it automatically goes over to your Google Docs. Now, what's great about it is you can go the opposite direction now. So if I'm in a Google Doc, and I'm working on it with a student or a group of people, and I think of this great note that I want to remember for later, you go into Tools, and then the notepad pops up, and this is your whole Google Keep right here. So then you can take a new note within it. So then once you're in it, if you're thinking, so I personally write a lot of sticky notes just so I don't forget to do something. So there is a reminder feature on it. So if you're in the note, then you can remind. So if you want it to pop up at a certain time, then you just add the reminder. And it does play with Google Calendar, so it's compatible with all of the Google features. So if you add a reminder, it automatically goes to your Google Calendar. And that's something that's really nice. There is certain ways, like there's certain things that I want to see at all times, and you can pin it to the top of your Keep, so it's automatically always there until you unpin it. So that's one of the features. And I learned about this the other day. This is so weird to think about. So when you're on and you're doing Google Images and you're trying to find a great third grade reading, and you want to, like, there's some mistake in it, you want to change it, but it's a PDF file and you can't. So what they've done is if you download it, you can add an image here. I don't have any, sorry. But once it's in there, there is a way, and it's a real easy, and it just says extract image, and it's one of the features within your 3 dots. Then it'll pull all of the text out of it for you. So then you don't have to go and you don't have to print it off and use your whiteout or anything. It does all of that automatically for you. So that was one of the great features. Now, one of my favorite parts is everything within this is searchable. So if I want to see who all has done their Moby Max time this week, I could just type it in, and then I've seen everything that pops up that has something to do with Moby Max. I can search by student. I can search by label. So it's just a great way, like if you're thinking, how do I organize personalized learning? This was how I was able to do it this year. And this is how I was able to keep everything within one place without getting lost within all of the mundaneness. awareness of personalized learning. So when we're thinking Javon here, so I have a bunch of these, but Javon only sees the one on his keep. So my students typically have from 8 to 10 different keeps, and that seems to be good for third grade, and I can't speak for any other grades. But I mean, and that's nice. So sometimes I just do a quality check, and I'll type in Javon's name to make sure he doesn't have more than that 10. And if he does, then we have a conversation like how many things do you have going on right now? Because obviously you have too much. Then if you add the extension version of it, and let's say I want to add Adam's awesome s'more here, then the extension is a little light bulb up here, and you have to search within the web store to get it. Then, oops, you can add it. And what's great is it automatically takes the hyperlink, and then you can put a note about it. So a lot of times if I find a great resource online and I want to share it with one of my teachers that I'm working with collaboratively, I'll do this, put the note, hey, I think we should use this for standard 3.1 or something. Then I'll share that with them, and then they get to see it on their end. And that's one way that we work collaboratively a lot. Yeah. You guys have any questions?
Okay, so I've cut that off a few minutes sooner, but I just wanted to get the basic. You certainly finished the video. And again, you can get to this video. It's embedded in the slides that we have done here. I am going to escape out of this. And I'm going to stop sharing for a moment from my desktop. And we are back with me. All right, so with that said, that is Google Keep. I'm glad that we watched the video because it highlighted a few things additional, like the fact that you can pin a note. So if you want to have some notes that are up at the top, that was one of several highlights. The idea of being able to search inside your notes. When he was looking at the MobiMax, and you could see all the notes that had that phrase in it. So some additional features and things to think about. As far as in our last few minutes here, I can take some questions, and then we can wrap up the session. Looks like we have a few minutes left from our time frame. So what are some things here? I see a note. Julie says, I'm not sure I understood what we did with the PDF, and I apologize. I may have overlooked where what happened in the video that there was a PDF involved that kind of threw you for a loop, Julie. If you can jump in and answer that, I'll see if I can tackle that or see if we can figure that out. And as far as other questions, Melody had jumped in. She had said that she has collaborative notes with each of her admin team and her secretaries as part of her team. And again, the great thing is that it's one Google Keep desktop experience for you, but what you could do is that you can make a label, maybe admin secretary, and all the notes that are about that person, but more importantly, one of those things that they, if there's something in there that you need to have an interactive moment as far as back and forth with that particular person, you can add them as a collaborator. You talked about several keeps. Can you have several pages so each kid can be a collaborator? Kind of. What happens is that your desktop can get really full really fast if you make a bunch of different keep notes. So when you're looking at all the keep notes at the same time, you would just scroll and scroll and scroll and keep going, and you'd see all the notes you've made. As far as for what the student sees, that depends on which ones you collaborate with them with. And this is the key part to me, besides the color coding is an opportunity to visually give you something so you can see different groups or people. It's a question of labels. Because if you do a label, then that means that you would just see, when you click on that particular label on the left side, that you would just see the notes for that particular label. You could make a label be a kid. So if, John Smith is a label, then anytime you make a note that has something to do with John Smith, you could just see those. Within those, if you want to actually have a collaborative experience with John Smith, you just collaborate on the notes you want him to be able to see. So it's not like you can share, collaborate a group of notes. It's not like a Google Doc folder where you could, Google Drive, where you could share an entire folder to view or edit. You can't really do that in Google Keep. From the student's perspective, it's just a matter of how they organize it. And it would probably take a little bit of, frankly, just firing it up on the screen and kind of walking through the students what your expectations are and how you're going to use Google Keep in your class. suggesting to them, for example, what labels they particularly want to use or have to organize their notes in a certain way. So hopefully I answered the question based on that. As far as several keeps, yeah, I think he was just talking about several keep notes. Keep notes is what I call them. Keeps is, I've heard that described as well. Here's all my keeps colored pink. So keeps and keep notes, I think, is just the terminology. That's what he means by several keeps. It's not like there's several different pages or several different environments. Keep.google.com is going to show all of your keep notes. But remember, there's a certain point where, because of the organization method, besides labels, there's no other really way. If you see your desktop, you're going to see all of your notes. So at some point, as a project finishes, as the semester ends, or whatever the case may be, archiving would probably be a good idea so your desktop doesn't seem so cluttered. So the labels are kind of like a folder. Yeah, you could absolutely think of them like that. So whatever label that you decide to come up with, by clicking it on the left side, then you would be able to just see those notes. Okay. Any last minute questions? I'll give us another minute or so before I start going into wrap up mode here. I will tell you, thank you very much. Hopefully, between the resources that you saw today, the video of Mr. Evelyn, you got some useful information. Again, hopefully you can revisit that and watch that and the Kate video in its entirety, and share those if you like, in order to help demonstrate what Keep can do for you and for your staff and for your school and for your district. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up, and I'm going to have another session here in a few minutes about Nearpod, which will begin at 2:25. So look forward to hopefully seeing some of you, and thanks so much for being with me today.